So according to the statement you gave the patrolman, you came down the chimney and saw the milk and cookies that you admit to consuming. How do you explain stepping over the pile of bodies without noticing? I've seen your rap sheet, hundreds of B&Ds, thousands of trespassing charges, FAA violations. Once the crime lab is done here, we will wrap you up like a Christmas present and deliver you to the penitentiary. Not laughing now, fat man, no ho-ho-hos. How do you explain this book under the table leg? Even your wife said she hadn't seen you since last evening. Care to explain your whereabouts the past 13 hours? I told the first officer I have a list with all my stops in my sleg. Well, it's been towed to impound and the reindeer have been turned over to the animal control authorities. Well, we are done here. I will see you down at the station. Well, the CSI team didn't find the list you claimed to have in your sleigh. However, they did discover a loaded .357 Magnum revolver with 5 spent rounds, exactly the number of bodies in the house. I found it lying on the table next to the milk and cookies. I picked it up, placed my finger alongside my nose and flew up the chimney to secure it so the children did not wake early and play with it. I was going to turn it in after I finished my rounds. Next you will tell me you live at the North Pole and manufacture toys. Don't even try it. The lab boys have already verified the country of origin of the toys we found in the sleigh to be from China. Times have been rough during the recession. My elves have always been hard workers and I suppose I brought it on myself. A few years back Time Warner called and offered me a cable TV and internet bundle. My product line had grown stagnant. When Sears Roebuck used to send their Christmas catalog, I would give it to the elves for inspiration for new toys. When that stopped coming, my elves just kept on making rocking horses and dolls that weave themselves. I had to stop producing army men and guns due to public outcry, and even candy canes were frowned upon. Oh boy, here it comes. Little did I know that once the elves started watching the news and surfing the internet, they would become disenchanted with the simple life of sugar plums, roasted chestnuts. While elves are hardy folk and live surprisingly long, my workforce was aging. The younger elves learning there was a world outside of the North Pole began to defect to Disney. In the old days Walt would have never undermined me like that. Walt and I would often hang out at his house on New Year's Eve with Bing Crosby, sipping brandy from Walt's cellars and bragging about our golf game. That Bob Iger is nothing more than a giant rat. Look for yourself sometime with him standing next to Mickey. He looks exactly like Mickey without ears. Are you through? Not quite. I could absorb the small loss of workforce the first couple of years, but many of my older elves were having health problems from the lead paint and asbestos we used to use. Arthritis was common. Failing eyesight were driving up my health care costs. Then the death blow was when somehow the SEIU union people showed up at my workshop and began to organize the elves. This is an interesting story, fat man. What could I do? The union demanded higher wages, better health plans, and even though the elves had almost 8 months of vacation time where I still provided meals and housing, they kept demanding more. They began showing up to work drunk and production and quality were at an all-time low. There was nothing I could do but shut down the workshop and outsource. You still have not explained the book propping up the short table leg. There is a very simple explanation for that, detective. You see, 2 years ago the family's great-uncle Otto passed away, and bequeathed the table to the family. In transit the leg was broken. Not wanting to dispose of the table, one of the children wrote me and asked me to repair it. I would have gladly accommodated the request, but by that point the elves were usually so drunk they would have chopped it up and put it in the wood stove. I was able to determine that the 1964 Encyclopedia Britannica Volume Q/R was exactly the right thickness, so I propped up the table leg with it. I doubt they ever noticed it missing from the bookshelf, as all their books have a heavy layer of dust on them. Okay, I have been patient up to now. Guard, take our guest back to his private suite. I don't believe it either, folks.